From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia, a Kings fan. He's Doug Stolhand, a Ducks fan. Thanks for joining us for the Puck Podcast. This is our first period of a three-period podcast. The first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, recaps the past week in the NHL on and off the ice. Our second period is our interview or special feature segment. This week, Doug will have an interview with Locked On Rangers host John Chick about what's going on in New York, and there's a lot. And in our third period, we have our fan feedback segment, and we'll talk a little about what's going on in our lives as well.
We also have an exciting and hilarious update.
And I don't know what this
recent, yes, I am looking forward to. You're going to want to stick around to hear Eddie's reaction to this hilarious and exciting update.
Well, you can find all three periods on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, please on YouTube hit the subscribe button. We are looking to get to 1,000 subscribers. At last check, we were at 649. So we are moving up, but we have not yet gotten to our goal of 1,000. So again, if you have not subscribed, please do so. We would greatly appreciate it.
And hit a thumbs up on that YouTube video if you're watching it so that it helps the algorithm. Basically, every time you watch a show or something, it gets in like, hey, you liked this episode or you like this video and you like this video. It cross-pollinates for the other audience and exposes our show to other people. So give us a thumbs up whenever you can. Thank you very much.
Now, if you're unfamiliar with us, Doug and I have worked in sports media for over 30 years. We were college roommates back at Fresno State. We've worked at Fox Sports TV, Fox Sports Radio, NFL Network. But our passion is hockey, and we've been putting out this podcast every week for 18 years and counting, except 1 week. Doug, let's get into our first period, our headlines. No real big headlines this week, although I feel like something big may be happening soon as far as more coaches being let go. But we did have a couple of trades that I wanted to get into quickly. One of them, for the second week in a row, involves your team. But we're going to start with a goalie swap between the Colorado Avalanche and the San Jose Sharks. The Avs have hit the eject button on both of their goalies from the start of the season. First, it was Justus Annunen shipped off to Nashville for Scott Wedgwood. This week, Colorado said so long to Alexander Georgiev. He goes to San Jose for Mackenzie Blackwood. Also part of the deal, forward Giovanni Smith and a fifth-round pick in 2027 go to the Avs, while prospect Nikolai Kovalenko, a fifth-round pick in 2025, and a second-round pick in 2027 go to the Sharks. The Avs are retaining 14% of Georgiev's contract. Doug, your thoughts on this deal?
Well, this now makes it, now that we've already seen Mackenzie Blackwood play a game, this makes 6 goalies that the Avalanche have played already this season. And Alexander Georgiev and Justus Annunen, as you mentioned, were the guys they started. They also have had 5 games played from Scott Wedgwood. Somebody named Trent Miner. I remember a Robbie Miner that we worked with in Fresno, but I don't believe it's the same one.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
And Mackenzie Blackwood and Capo Kakinen make it 6. I don't blame them ultimately for saying this is not good enough. If we look back at the stats that Georgiev had with them, he had a 3.38 goals against average and an 874 save percentage. Annunen had a 3.23 goals against average and an 872 save percentage. Hard to argue that either one of those guys are people you should have confidence in when you have Stanley Cup aspirations, as the Colorado Avalanche do. The question now is, have they done enough to upgrade their goaltending with the tandem of Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood? And I don't know, but I know it's better than what they had. Mackenzie Blackwood was playing well for the San Jose Sharks, and the Sharks are not a Stanley Cup contender. And now he goes behind a team that's going to give him some run support, get him some more goals scored on a nightly basis. And I think more than anything, the change in the 2 goalies changes the mentality for the players on the Avalanche. They take the ice with a different feeling. I think there was a little bit of a sense of, we got to outscore the opponent on a nightly basis, and not having a lot of confidence in their goaltender. And now with Wedgwood and Blackwood as the tandem, I think that changes it just enough that they can go out there with a whole different vibe, different energy, and a renewed confidence in the 2 guys behind them. And so far, both of them have played well. Obviously, very limited results, but Scott Wedgwood has played 5 games for him, has a 931 save percentage. Mackenzie Blackwood played 1 game, had a 949 save percentage. That's the kind of start that's going to give them confidence. And if this team can get competent goaltending with their offensive potential and production, that's a dangerous combination that's going to make them a strong contender in the Western Conference.
And it may or may not work out, but if you're an Avalanche fan and you're thinking, hey, we're a Stanley Cup contender with a good goalie, going out and getting a bigger name goalie per se, obviously that goalie comes back with a bigger price tag. So the Avalanche, right, they're looking to change things up, hopefully fix things, but to get another goalie that fits under with what they're spending right now before they maybe make a more drastic step later on in the year if they need to.
Right. The total cost for Blackwood and Wedgwood is $3.85 million. And only Wedgwood is signed beyond this season. So if you can get your total goaltending under $4 million, that's an absolute bargain. Now they've got quite a few dollars tied up in long-term injured reserve right now. Obviously, Gabe Landeskog, $7 million, Jonathan Drouin at $2.5 million, Miles Wood at $2.5 million, Josh Manson at $4.5 million, and Tucker Poolman at $2 million, all on long-term injured reserve, giving them additional cap space, of course. So while they are way over the projected cap of the limit is allegedly 88 million, they're at 94,580,000. But obviously, with that $7 million on Gabe Landeskog, not expected to come off the books anytime soon, they should be comfortably under it. But they managed their money very well, got what they needed out of these deals. And if either of these guys is not the problem is now, if anything happens to these guys, they're really painted into a corner. They're kind of stuck with these two guys for the season. If this blows up on them, I don't see how they could manipulate the cap enough to find somebody that, as you said, would both be an upgrade in net and fit under the cap that is very tight for them without sending out some money that they don't want to send out. They have good players on their roster and they want to be able to keep this. They want to keep as much talent as they have at forward and defense. And this has made the most of a very tight contract or tight salary cap that they have. You got to give credit to the entire organization for making this happen, because this was an interesting trade. You don't think of Mackenzie Blackwood as being a big upgrade, but I think it is both in production, but more so in the confidence it gives the team in front of him.
And not a blockbuster trade, but anytime you're dealing with goaltenders, it's obviously such an important position that it does make it an interesting trade for sure. This one is not a blockbuster either, but it does involve a name that probably a lot of hockey fans are familiar with. Certainly you are as a Ducks fan. And you mentioned on last week's show that you thought the Ducks were looking to move veteran defenseman Cam Fowler. And they did just that. They sent Fowler and a 4th-round pick in 2027 to the St. Louis Blues for a 2027 second-round pick and 22-year-old minor league defenseman Jeremy Biakabutuka, whose name I know how to pronounce because he's related to former Michigan and NFL running back Tim Biakabutuka. What's the relationship, Doug?
Tim Biakabutuka is Jeremy's uncle.
Right. Ducks are retaining 38.5% of Fowler's $6.5 million cap hit. The 33-year-old defenseman signed through the 2025-26 season. Fowler had spent the entirety of his 15-year NHL career with the Ducks, was the highest scoring defenseman in franchise history with 457 points in 991 games. Also among the franchise leaders in goals, assists, and games played for defensemen in team history. So, Doug, obviously, again, this affects one of your teams. Your thoughts on this trade and what the Blues are getting in veteran defenseman Cam Fowler?
Well, I think ultimately this is a replacement for Nick Leddy. And we saw the Nick Leddy injury joining Torrey Krug on long-term injured reserve, or at least Nick Leddy on injured reserve. And that really strained their depth on defense. So they still had Justin Falk, Colton Parayko, Philip Broberg. But beyond that, when you're going to Scott Perunovich, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, maybe Ryan Suter, those are minutes they're probably not happy with. And I think the Blues, with the coaching change to bring in Jim Montgomery, fancy themselves a playoff team this season. And for a playoff push, you got to have a better defense than what they were having. So they saw an opportunity with the Leddy injury to make a move. Cam Fowler is a veteran that a lot of Ducks fans were happy to see go. A guy that was a whipping boy among Ducks fans in recent years. And look, the whole team stinks. So saying he has not been playing well is not, nobody is playing well. There are obviously guys that are doing better than others, but I don't look at Cam Fowler as being a liability on the ice. He's a good second pairing defenseman on a good team, and I think that's where he'll fit on this team. He's a left shot defenseman that can play on the penalty kill, can play on the power play, can certainly play at even strength. So he gives you minutes in all situations. And I think it gives them that depth, especially once Nick Leddy returns, and hopefully Torrey Krug returns at some point while these guys are still under contract. But once Nick Leddy returns, it gives them a really solid defensive core to build around with a good goalie in Jordan Binnington. I think it's a decent trade for them to get that, but I was very happy to see that the Ducks got a second-round pick granted in 2027 for a guy that I think it was pretty well known they were shopping, a veteran at 33 years old, didn't have a future with the team. There's a logjam on defense with the Ducks once they made the Jacob Trouba trade. So I think getting a second-round pick for a guy that was ultimately expendable was pretty good return for the Ducks, even if it is a late second-round pick by the time 2027 comes around. We'll see. It'll be a long time before a player that was involved in this trade is on the ice for the Ducks. I don't expect Jeremy Biakabutuka to make the roster. It's a very deep defensive roster right now for the Ducks, but a fair trade for both teams. I think it was out of necessity for St. Louis and a good return for the Ducks.
All right, we're going to pass along some more news and notes coming up, but we're going to get to all of the games from the past week in the NHL. If you were an NHL fan of any team, we are going to talk about your team. Now, some of these games will be just a quick note and a score, while others will be a little bit more of an in-depth look. It was a weird schedule this week, by the way.
Feast or famine.
3 games, 11 games, 2 games, 14 games, 1 game, 15 games, and 5 games. So we'll go back to Monday where we had 3 games on the schedule, and the Rangers' struggles continuing with a 2-1 loss to the Blackhawks on home ice. Rangers had lost 8 of 10 at that point. Congratulations to head coach Anders Sorensen. He gets his first NHL win as a head coach and becomes the first Swedish-born coach to get an NHL victory. Chicago snapped a 6-game road losing skid behind number 2 goalie Arvid Soderblom. He had 29 saves in for the injured Peter Mrazek. New York netminder Igor Shesterkin played in his first game since signing that record 8-year, $92 million deal. He allowed 2 goals on 32 shots, and he has lost 7 of his last 8 starts at that point.
That was certainly not on Igor Shesterkin. You only give up 2 goals, but that's the pathetic part, is a game that you got to have with the offensive talent the New York Rangers have, and you can only muster 1 goal against the Blackhawks with their backup goalie in net on home ice. That's a terrible loss for the New York Rangers, made worse by the fact that it was in regulation. You did not even get 1 point. So that's the really upsetting thing, if I'm a Rangers fan, is we only got 1 goal the entire game against the Chicago Blackhawks backup goalie. That's unacceptable.
In Buffalo was a battle of 2 teams on losing streaks. In the end, the Red Wings snapped their 5-game skid with a 6-5 come-from-behind shootout win over the Sabres, who dropped their 6th in a row. For Detroit, Andrew Kopp had 2 goals. Lucas Raymond had a goal in regulation and the shootout game winner. And goalie Sebastian Kosha, first-round pick in 2021, came on in relief of Ville Husso and won his NHL debut. Kosha allowed 2 goals on 14 shots and stopped 2 of the 3 shooters he saw in the shootout. So congrats to him. Jason Zucker, a pair of goals in defeat for Buffalo.
Well, you mentioned this was a shootout, and there were 2 game-tying goals by the Detroit Red Wings, and Lucas Raymond factored on each of them as Detroit captured its first multi-goal third-period comeback victory of the season, one that they desperately needed. And Raymond now leads the club with 30 points in 28 games. That gives him ties him with Dale McCourt for the 5th most multi-point games by a Red Wings player before the age of 23. And he's just behind Steve Yzerman, Marcel Dion, Gordie Howe, and Sergei Fedorov. And if you're watching our YouTube video, you see the board in front of you, the fewest games to 30 points in a season by a player 22 or younger in franchise history. That's illustrious company right there. Sergei Fedorov, Steve Yzerman twice because he was so young when he joined the league, and Marcel Dion. So 28 games to 30 points. It's been a rough start for Detroit. This was a much needed win, getting a come from behind victory, getting a shootout win, getting, as you mentioned, Kosha, his first win in his first start. I thought that was a big sigh of relief for the Detroit Red Wings and a nice game from Lucas Raymond.
And the Canadiens got by the Ducks in Anaheim 3-2 in a shootout in a battle of last-place teams. For Montreal, Patrick Laine had a goal in regulation and the game winner in the shootout. That gave Laine 3 goals in 4 games, all coming on the power play. Troy Terry had both Ducks goals in defeat. And in his Anaheim debut, defenseman Jacob Trouba played 22 minutes and 35 seconds. No points, 5 hits. He was a -1.
Well, we talked about rookie defenseman Lane Hudson for the Montreal Canadiens last week in his scoring streak. He did assist on one of the two Canadiens' goals in regulation, which gave him 21 assists through 30 games, extended his point streak to 7 games. That is the longest by a rookie defenseman in Canadiens history. Hudson, one of 8 rookie blue liners in NHL history with at least 21 assists through his first 30 games. He became the 9th rookie defenseman since 1988-89 to register a 7-game point streak. And if you are watching on YouTube, you see the stat in front of you there, the most assists through 30 games by a rookie defenseman in NHL history. Again, Lane Hudson on a heater here with 21 assists through his first 30 games. The only ones that have had more in NHL history, Brian Leetch, Quinn Hughes, Nick Lidstrom, and Larry Murphy. That is very good company to be keeping. And he's tied with Cale Makar, who obviously is the best offensive defenseman in the NHL right now. So big game for Lane Hudson, big game for the Montreal Canadiens, and a very rare day in the NHL when the Blackhawks, Red Wings, and Canadiens all win on the same day. That doesn't happen very often, but 3 original 6 teams that are desperate need of points, and they all got them on Sunday.
All right, let's move on to Tuesday. We had 11 games. The Maple Leafs edged the Devils in New Jersey 2-1 in overtime. Austin Matthews gets the overtime game winner, while goalie Anthony Stolarz was amazing. 38 saves in net in a battle of 2 of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Max Domi did return to the Toronto lineup after missing 8 games. He had no points in just under 15 minutes of ice time. Avalanche took care of the Penguins in Pittsburgh 6-2 in his 600th NHL game. Avstar Mikko Rantanen had 3 goals for the hat trick, goals 16, 17, and 18 on the season, his 10th career hat trick. Rantanen, who is a UFA at the end of the season, finished with a 5-point night, as did his line mate Nathan MacKinnon, who had a goal and 4 assists as well.
And on those 4 assists, Nathan MacKinnon becomes the 3rd player in franchise history to record 600 career assists. The others, no surprise there, Joe Sakic and Peter Stastny.
Kings make it 6 wins in a row with a 3-1 win over the Islanders in New York. LA goalie Darcy Kemper only had to make 19 saves in net. LA had allowed a total of 8 goals over their 6-game winning streak.
That's a good way to win games.
Yes, it is. And they're playing some great team defense right now. Flames snap an 8-game road losing skid by beating the Predators 4-3 in Nashville. The Preds have lost 8 straight at that point. Jonathan Huberdeau's power play goal was the game winner for Calgary. In the loss, Jonathan Marchessault had his first 2-goal game for Nashville. Preds fall to 7-16-6 at that point, and that was the worst record in the NHL.
In the entire NHL. How is Andrew Brunette still coaching?
I don't know. I have no idea.
What is it going to take for Barry Trotz, the GM, to say enough is enough? We got to try something different, because he invested so much in this roster. And you're losing on home ice. 7 wins through the first 29 games. Unacceptable. That is, you went out and invested a lot in free agency. These are not the results. And we're getting close now to New Year's. We can't, the season's gone at some point, right? It's too late to make a change that's going to have any significance, especially in a very competitive Western Conference. We talked about it last week. We think the 8 teams are already set in the West. It would take something incredible from the Nashville Predators, but what they have right now is not working. So why not try? Andrew Brunette's not some sacred cow. Why not try something different behind the bench to see if it gets different results? And maybe you can salvage this season, because this has been a disaster. And I'm not just talking about this loss to Calgary. There's no shame in losing 1 game to the Flames. But 7 wins through 29 games, awful.
Shocking, frankly. Absolutely shocking.
You said the Kings had won 6 straight. The Predators have 7 wins total.
I hear you, man. It's I don't get it. I have no.
Yeah.
I'm sure Predators fans are scratching their heads as well, especially when you think we've got a Hall of Fame coach in waiting. We don't even have to pay him anything. He's right there. Just come down from the front office and go behind the bench.
Put down the popcorn, get down the elevator, event level, please. Get behind the bench, tap Andrew Brunette on the shoulder and say, I'll take it from here, buddy. The taxi's waiting for you.
I don't get it. The Jets crushed the Bruins 8-1. Mark Scheifele scored twice for Winnipeg, who blew the game open with 5 unanswered goals in the third period. Boston goalie Jeremy Swayman allowed all 8 goals on 25 shots. And I don't know if you saw the end of this one, but Boston decided in the third period when they were getting their asses kicked, let's get into some fights. That'll show them. And I just look, I don't mind fighting in hockey. I think it has its place in certain situations, but that kind of stuff always makes me roll my eyes and shake my head. It's like if you wanted to show some fight, how about in the first two periods when you were, when it was still a competitive game, and now you're getting your ass kicked, and it's like, oh, we got to fight now to like defend our honor or something like that.
It's a double-edged sword. Like, look, I get what you're saying, but as a fan, I'd rather see that than them do nothing. I'd rather see that than them just skating through the motions and show some fight, show that you're upset with what is happening on the ice. Granted, I'd rather have seen it at the beginning of the game, but at least it tells me that you're upset and we will see something different in your next game. This was an embarrassment for Boston Bruins. For Winnipeg, it was the 9th time this season already, 9th, that they've scored 6 or more goals in a game. My goodness, that ties the mark they had all of last season, and they still have 50 games to play.
Oilers edge the Lightning 2-1. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl had both goals for Edmonton. For Draisaitl, becomes the first player to reach the 20-goal mark this season. Stuart Skinner, 21 saves in net.
That is Edmonton. The 9th straight season that Leon Draisaitl has reached 20 goals, which ties Wayne Gretzky for the franchise record. His goals are clutch, too. He scored his 6th game-winning goal of the season already in their 2-1 win over the Lightning. And when you tie a record that Wayne Gretzky has, you've done something good. I also like his chances to make it 10 straight next year.
I would say so.
I mean, 20 goals already in mid-December is crazy.
Blues beat the Canucks in Vancouver in overtime 4-3. Dylan Holloway had the overtime game winner for St. Louis, spoiling the return of Canucks goalie Thatcher Demko. In his season debut, he allowed 4 goals on 25 shots. In the loss for Vancouver, Dakota Joshua did get his first goal of the season, obviously coming back from prostate cancer treatment over the summer, so cool to see Dakota Joshua get on the board. Hurricanes edged the Sharks 3-2. Carolina took the lead with a pair of third-period goals from their defensemen. Brent Burns tied it, and then Jalen Chatfield had the game winner. Panthers got by the Kraken in Seattle 2-1 in a shootout. Alexander Barkov had Florida's lone goal in regulation and then scored in the shootout as well. Sergei Bobrovsky only had to make 17 saves in net as Florida improved to 6-0-1 in their last 7. They had that little dip for a while, but the defending Stanley Cup champs look like they're back on track.
Yeah, and I think they're one of those teams now that also knows the games really matter in about 4 months. Just make the playoffs, make the tournament, and give yourself a chance. But the way they played team defense, it tells me that had you and I been in net, Eddie, the score would have been 17-1 for the Seattle Kraken, which is not far off of what Winnipeg did to Boston.
So I'm not feeling that bad. Hope it hits me.
Yeah, honestly.
Wild edge the Utah Hockey Club on the road 5-4 in a shootout. Minnesota's Marco Rossi tied it in the final seconds. Matt Boldy got the game winner in the shootout, and star Kirill Kaprizov gets his 18th goal of the season. Clayton Keller, a 2-goal game in the loss for Utah.
How about this number? And I talked about the 7 wins total for the Predators this season. The Wild at that point have 5 regulation losses all season. I am baffled by their success, more so than the Capitals. The Capitals, I can understand because they still had some offensive talent. The Wild, I looked at as a one-line team with questionable goaltending, questionable defense. They've been incredibly impressive this season.
I am with you on that one. And finally, on Tuesday, the Flyers down the Blue Jackets 5-3 in Columbus. Travis Konecny, 2 goals for Philly. Owen Tippett scored a goal for his fifth straight game. 5 goals in 5 games for Owen Tippett. Moving on to Wednesday, just 2 games. The Rangers get a much-needed win over the struggling Sabres in Buffalo, 3-2. Adam Fox gets a goal, his first of the season, to go along with 2 assists. His empty net goal would end up being the game winner. It was just the 3rd win in 11 games for the Rangers. Buffalo dropped their 8th straight. Tage Thompson gets his 16th goal in defeat.
I mean, look at the week so far for Buffalo. They lose to the Red Wings in a goalie's debut. It's the first time all season the Red Wings have had a multi-goal comeback in the 3rd period to win a game. And then they lose to a team that can't get out of its own way in the Rangers in regulation, both on home ice. Absolutely brutal. And I don't know if you've been seeing what's been going on with the palm trees in Buffalo, Eddie.
I have not. What's going on?
So
they have palm trees in Buffalo?
They do not. And that was what the point of Kevin Adams, the GM, was he was talking about the difficulty in recruiting and retaining players in Buffalo. And he says, we have sales tax. We don't have palm trees in Buffalo. We have sales tax or state income tax. So it's harder meaning it's easier to get players in Florida than it is in Buffalo. So the Buffalo Sabres fans have taken it upon themselves to start bringing inflatable palm trees, wearing Hawaiian shirts, and making a tropical feel there, to which
That's awesome.
team said, no, stop that, and started confiscating the palm trees, to which the fans then went public and said, what is going on? So the team recanted and has now allowed and is embracing the palm trees and the Hawaiian theme.
Should have done that in the first place. I mean, those fans, I mean, come on.
If they're
showing up, exactly.
100%. I don't care what you're doing.
Bring whatever you want.
As long as it's not offensive or illegal, by all means. I don't care what you wear. If everybody wants to dress as unicorns, do it, as long as you're buying a ticket to see this team play. My God. And that's thanks to a friend of the show, Doug Wilson, that gave me a tip on that via article this past week.
Also, the final game on Wednesday, the Senators knocked off the Ducks 5-1. Drake Batherson, 3 goals for the natural hat trick in the win for Ottawa. He had an assist as well for a 4-point night. Linus Ullmark, 31 saves in net for the Senators.
And Drake Batherson's natural hat trick is the 7th natural hat trick in the NHL so far this season. It is the 5th most at this point in the season in NHL history. The record was 11 back in 1991-92. One of those goals was the 100th in Batherson's career as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see the list of natural hat tricks so far this season. We've had one by Anze Kopitar. That was the first of the Kings. Nikita Kucherov of the Lightning. Brandon Hagel of the Lightning. Brandon Montour, good time to be named Brandon, of the Kraken. Mikko Rantanen of the Avalanche. Nico Hischier of the Devils. And now Drake Batherson as well. And Eddie, I want to, if you can bring us back on camera here on YouTube, I want to get a brief power play here. With every hat trick this season, AstraZeneca will donate $3,000 to the Hockey Fights Cancer Fund of the V Foundation, up to $300,000. Why not just write the check? Are we really going to make the Hockey Fights Cancer folks depend on hat tricks to get the treatment or research they need to survive? And why limit it at $300,000? AstraZeneca made over $8 billion in profits in 2023. Go ahead and write a $3,000 check for every hat trick this season with no limit. Last year, by the way, there were 115 hat tricks, which means they dish out a whopping 45,000 more than their limit. But so what? It's Hockey Fights Cancer. Are you worried about cancer patients or scientists getting too sweet of a deal? We can't have them living too high on the hog. They're cancer patients. It's cancer research. Donate the money. And why make it contingent on hat tricks? I'm sorry, we could have cured cancer, but the goal was waved off due to an offside. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. Don't write the check. I love this whole tie-in of just write a $500,000 check and leave it at that.
I'm not going to argue with you, obviously, on that. Let's move on to Thursday. We had 14 games, and this was a wild night with some wild games. We'll start, though, with what I thought the game of the night was, as far as the matchup of the night as well.
Ducks Maple Leafs?
No, it was in Winnipeg, where the Golden Knights knocked off the Jets 3-2 in overtime on an Ivan Barbashev goal in sudden death. Vegas gets its 8th straight win over Winnipeg, and they eclipsed the 40-point mark on the season while maintaining the top spot in the Pacific with 41 points. Winnipeg, however, with the overtime loss, does get a point, and with that, they moved into sole possession of first place in the Central over Minnesota because the Wild lost at home to the Oilers 7-1. Shocking that Leon Draisaitl had a hand in this one. A 4-point night for Leon, including his 21st goal of the season. That gave him 26 points in his last 15 games. Wild goalie Philip Gustafson allowed 5 goals on 26 shots before getting the hook.
A boat race, and you mentioned
not the last
26 points in his last 15 games. Is that correct?
That point for Leon, yep.
I'm going to look it up real quick. That would place him, if that was all he played this season, that would place him 53rd in the entire NHL in scoring. He would be tied with Sam Bennett, Jared McCann, Elias Pettersson, Logan Cooley, Connor Bedard, Shea Theodore, all with 26 points. Just in his last 15 games. They've played 30 games. That's amazing.
Capitals extend their franchise record road winning streak to 10 in a row with a 2-1 overtime win over the Blue Jackets in Columbus. Alexei Protas with the overtime game winner for Washington, who remained a point up on New Jersey for first in the Metro with 42 points. Devils snapped the Kings' 6-game winning streak with a 3-run home win. Jack Hughes had a goal and 2 assists for New Jersey. Panthers were shut out by the Canucks 4-0. Vancouver's Kevin Lankinen stopped 27 shots in the win. In his return to the lineup after missing 10 games for personal reasons, JT Miller had 2 assists for the Canucks. Miller did talk to the media before the game. He would not reveal the reason for his time away from the team.
He did say it. He did actually say the reason. He said it was none of your business.
Yeah, that's not really
personal reasons.
The Maple Leafs edged the Ducks 3-2. Max Pacioretty with a pair of goals in the win. Toronto moved into a tie with Florida for the Atlantic Division lead. Leafs and Panthers each had 38 points at the time. In the win for Toronto, they did lose goalie Anthony Stolarz, who has been playing very well with a lower body injury. He has been placed on injured reserve. Meanwhile, some good news for the Ducks, who did lose their 5th in a row, but they found out that forward Trevor Zegras will miss 6 weeks following surgery for a torn meniscus in his knee. It looked like he was going to be out for a lot longer than that.
Yes.
So thankfully, the injury for Trevor Zegras not as severe as we thought it might be.
Yeah, it's much better than we thought it would be. 6 weeks puts him at the end of January, if all goes well. So that's very good news. And they may push it until after the 4 Nations. Why not? Why rush him back? We'll see what happens with his recovery and how the season's going. But 2 things you can count on if you're a Ducks fan. And if you're a gambler, this is something to remember as well. If there's a former Duck, they're going to play great against the Ducks. They always score the goals. Anthony Stolarz was in net. He obviously was he got the start, but he did not get the win. But I was convinced, I'm like, this guy's going to have a great game. And then it went the exact opposite way. He got injured, hated to see it, hated to see him getting helped off with the injury. Hopefully he is back soon because he's been playing the best of his career so far this season. Has looked great.
Predators snapped their 8-game losing skid with a 4-1 win over the Stars in Dallas. The Stars falling to 12-3 on home ice with that surprising loss. Speaking of gambling, I'm sure there's some people that lost that bet. Ryan O'Reilly led the Predators with 2 goals, while Justus Annunen gets his first win as a Predator, making 35 saves in the victory. Penguins scored 9 goals, 6 in the third period alone, in a 9-2 rout of the Canadiens in Montreal. Brian Rust had a 4-point night, including a hat trick. Ricard Raquel, 2 goals and 2 assists for Pittsburgh. Montreal goalie Sam Montembeault, who's been good this year, 6 goals on 26 shots before he was told to hit the showers.
I had the Canadiens plus 6.5. I thought it was a lock.
Tough. That's tough.
Bad beat.
Lightning scored 8 goals in an 8-3 win over the Flames in Calgary. Nikita Kucherov matching a career high with 6 points, 1 goal, and 5 assists. Jake Gensel had a hat trick, and goalie Dan Vladar for the Flames allowed all 8 goals on 26 shots.
You mentioned we had 14 games this day, correct?
That's right.
We had every number represented from 0 to 9 in a team scoring goals. That's
a wild
very
night.
rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
The Flyers beat the Red Wings 4-1. Philadelphia's Scott Lawton had 4 goals, otherwise known by the podcast community as the pants trick, although 2 of them were empty net goals, but it still counts.
Still counts. Throw your pants on the ice, and it is the first pants trick in the NHL this season. You mentioned he scored on the penalty kill, 2 empty net goals, and 1 even strength goal. And I have to correct myself. We didn't have a 6. Nobody scored 6 goals on this day.
That's sad. That's too bad. The Sharks defeated the Blues 4-3. Number 1 overall pick, Macklin Celebrini, had his first career 2-goal night for San Jose. And in his Sharks debut in net, Alexander Georgiev, 3 goals allowed on 20 shots. He gets the victory.
Macklin Celebrini has been as good as advertised so far this season. He's in great company through his first 20 games. He has 19 points and is one of only 7 players in NHL history with 10 goals through his first 20 games. The others, Steve Yzerman, Patrick Laine, Dale Hawerchuk, Ted Kennedy, not that one, Connor Bedard, and Paul Gagne. Overall, he's got the 11th most points through 20 games in NHL history. Some of the people ahead of him, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this, are hockey royalty: Wayne Gretzky, Ron Francis, Sidney Crosby, Patrick Kane, Steve Yzerman, Dale Hawerchuk, among others. Impressive start for the young man, just 18 years old, and through his first 20 games, he already has 19 points and looks to be not just NHL ready, but star caliber already, and coming up big in big moments for his team so far.
There is one name on that list, though, that is a cautionary tale. Alexander Daig of the Ottawa Senators is on there, and it didn't work out for him. Probably will,
correct.
though, for Macklin Celebrini, but
Yeah.
there is a note there that this great starts don't always turn out.
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was another one, and he's a good player, but he is not the player that was promised when he got drafted.
Islanders held off the Blackhawks for a 5-4 win. Max Siplikov gets the game winner for New York as the Islanders allowed the first goal, then scored 5 straight, then allowed 3 goals in the third period to make it interesting, but then they hold on for the victory. Of course, we know the Islanders have had their issues in the third period this year if you've been paying attention to the show. Utah Hockey Club posted a 4-1 win over the Avalanche in Colorado. Ryan Gunther gets 2 goals for Utah, and Kirill Vejmelka had 23 saves in net. So are we calling this the Rocky Mountain matchup now that we've got Utah versus Colorado, 2 states that border each other, that share the Rocky Mountains? Do we have a nickname for this game now? Rocky Mountain matchup? Is that too easy?
Well, Colorado and Arizona border each other as well. But we didn't have a nickname for that matchup.
No, the Rocky Mountains, though, don't extend, I don't believe, into Arizona, but they are in Utah.
Yeah, I'm not going to force it, but I'm not against it.
All right.
Well, did you hear that, or did you come up with
that? It just came in my head. I'm like, these 2 teams are like, border states. And so, yeah, maybe. By the way, did you say Arizona borders Colorado? Is that true?
Yeah, it's part of the 4 corners.
Oh, that's right. I guess that counts.
I mean, I literally stepped from Arizona into Colorado.
I remember.
I will say, once they are the Yeti and you've got the Avalanche, we got to come up with something there.
There you go. Finally, on a busy Thursday, the Kraken defeat the Bruins 5-1. Oliver Bjorkstrand, a pair of goals in the win for Seattle. The Kraken honored co-owner and founder David Bonderman before the game. They're now wearing a patch on their jersey as Bonderman passed away at the age of 82.
You think the Bruins are thinking they need a coaching change after losing 8-1 and following that up with a 5-1 loss?
Well, if they are, they need to get in line behind the Predators and the Rangers.
I'm saying they've already made a coaching change this season.
Yeah, no, they're not. I don't think they're going to do that again.
Get out of here, Joe Sacco.
We had one game on Friday. The Senators surprised the Hurricanes with a 3-1 win on the road. Linus Ullmark, 3-0 win. Thank you. Linus Ullmark, 32 saves in the shutout, while Shane Pinto had a pair of goals for Ottawa. This was just the 4th loss in 16 home games for Carolina.
And Linus Ullmark starting to play like the guys the Senators thought they were getting in December at this point. 5-0-1 with a 1.31 goals against average and a 956 save percentage, which follows a disastrous November when he was 3-5-1 with a 324 goals against average and an 878 save percentage. Yeah. So this recent streak he's been on, this is what they thought they were getting. This is what they were paying for. And this is why they were believers that they had finally turned a corner, gotten the goalie they've been looking for since they had Martin Gerber between the pipes. Gerber baby. And it's good to see for Ottawa, I'm sure, to have a guy that you can count on between the pipes.
A little more coming up on the Senators as well. Always a busy Saturday, 15 games on the schedule, and the Oilers jumped out to a 5-0 lead before doubling up the Golden Knights 6-3 for their 5th win in a row. Leon Draisaitl scored his NHL-leading 22nd goal of the season for Edmonton.
I mean, this guy is automatic, man.
He is in fuego. The Kings roll over the Rangers in New York 5-1. Igor Shesterkin allowed 5 goals on 21 shots before getting pulled. In a battle of the top 2 picks in the 2020 draft, you had Quentin Byfield with a goal and assist for LA. Alexis Lafreniere, no points for New York. Kings have won 7 of 8 at that point. And I noticed that Igor Shesterkin did the Ricky Williams on the bench when he got pulled. I've never seen a goalie do this. He sat on the bench for the rest of the game with his mask on.
That's
he doesn't want to show his face at this point. I don't know. I just
you think that was in reference to Nedeljkovic? Did you see he took a puck to the face while sitting on the bench?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, Alex Nedeljkovic, the backup goalie for Pittsburgh, took a puck to the face. So maybe maybe he saw that earlier in the day and thought, I'm gonna no danger here. I'm gonna protect myself. Yeah. I don't know. Or he was just like, the cameras are gonna be on me and I don't want him seeing anything more than they have to.
Yeah.
That is very odd.
It was weird to just see him just sitting on the bench wearing his mask the whole time.
Yeah.
Capitals,
there's a lot of ways you could go when you say someone pulls the Ricky Williams. There's a lot of ways that could go. He posed in a wedding dress with his head coach.
Yeah. For those who don't remember, Ricky Williams was a Heisman Trophy winning running back. He was with the Saints and he was so kind of not into the media attention. He would wear his football helmet while they were putting microphones in his face. Yep. The Capitals beat the Sabres 4-2 to hand Buffalo a 9th straight loss. Tom Wilson, 2 goals for Washington. Avalanche beat the Predators 5-2 in his Colorado debut. Mackenzie Blackwood, 38 saves in net to get the win. Nathan MacKinnon had 2 goals and passed Hall of Famer Michel Goulet for third in points in franchise history with 949. Also, Nashville.
Go on. It's his 50th point of the season. He's the first 50-point player in the NHL this year, and it's his 10th straight 50-point season. I like his chances to get an 11th straight.
Also in this game, Nashville's Michael McCarron took a skate to the neck, had several stitches. He claimed that the neck guard would not have prevented his injury. He said it was higher up on his neck, I guess, but certainly was scary, and we're thankful that he is okay.
Yes.
Red Wings surprised the Maple Leafs with a 4-2 win. Jeff Petrie a pair of goals in the win for Detroit. We had the Flames blanking the Panthers 3-0. Dustin Wolf, 32 saves in the shutout victory for Calgary. Wild beat the Flyers 4-1. Kirill Kaprizov, 2 goals, numbers 19 and 20 for him, while goalie Marc-Andre Fleury had 21 saves in net in the victory. Devils down the Blackhawks 4-1. New Jersey was down 1-0 in the third and then scored 4 unanswered goals. Nico Hischier gets his 16th of the season.
For that Wild game, it could have been 4-2, but did you see, Eddie, Matvei Michkov blocking his own teammate's shot?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That was one of the wilder things I've seen in a while. I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, clearly.
I think he was getting his stick out there in case they were going to pass it to him, but
okay, but that's fine. But it's going in the net. Let it go.
It was a wide open net, and literally he put his stick down in the crease and blocked the shot from going into the wide open net. Yeah, unbelievable.
That was crazy. Thank you for remembering to bring that up. We had the Stars edging the Blues 2-1 in overtime. Matt Duchene gets the OT game winner for Dallas. Jake Ottinger only had to make 15 saves in net in the win. And in his St. Louis Blues debut, on the same day he was traded, Cam Fowler did play for St. Louis, no points in just under 18 minutes of ice time. The Bruins handle the Canucks in Vancouver 5-1. Boston getting goals from Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak, while goalie Jeremy Swayman had 19 saves in net. Vancouver dropped to 5-7-1 on home ice this season. Jets down the Canadians 4-2. Kyle Connor gets his 17th of the season on the power play, and that would be the game winner for Winnipeg. Senators squeak by the Penguins with a 3-2 overtime win. Brady Tkachuk scores the overtime game winner for Ottawa as they won for the 7th time in their last 10 games, and they are currently holding a playoff spot. We'll update the standings coming up in just a moment.
How about that?
Did you see the video making the rounds on social media? E-Bug, emergency backup goalie Zach Dietz, was shown running with his gear on the street outside the arena to get into a position to possibly play. Now, Linus Ullmark was supposed to have the night off, but Anton Forsberg got hurt in warm-up. So Ullmark got the start, but they had to activate the E-Bug. And I don't know if you know what's going on with his story with this, but wouldn't you think he'd have his gear, like, I don't know, in his car, or maybe they just store it at the arena? I don't know why he had to go run and get it, and then he was like running down the street. People are filming him in their car as they're coming into the arena.
Give him a ride.
He's running down the street.
That's what I don't understand. You're filming a guy running, like, hey, buddy, hop in.
Well,
man.
They don't know who he is. They have no idea who this guy is.
Okay, but why? Somebody had to be wise enough to know the E-Bug situation and figure out if a guy's hoofing it on foot with all of his gear, he's either a player in the game that just got called up from the minors, or he's the emergency backup. Either way, hop in, man. He's obviously not a dangerous hitchhiker. Family killed by a hitchhiker with hockey gear. He's running.
I've had dreams very similar to this where I'm supposed to be playing in a game and I'm like running to the arena and I can't get there in time for the game or something like that. I have these dreams relatively often where I don't know what that means. I have not analyzed these dreams. But I've had dreams like this where I have to play in some game and I'm like, I can't make it there. I'm running and I can't ever get to the game in time or something like that. So,
well, I've had 2 similar dreams. One is I'm in the locker room getting ready for the game, and it's just taking me forever to get my gear on, and the game's already started and I can hear it going on. And
yeah,
I cannot get my gear on in time to get out there. Like something's always
happening.
I
can't find my skates. I've got everything, but we can't find the skates. So
And then the other recurring one I have is me and Lucy Liu, but that's not something we want to get into right now.
Yes, I'm sure you bought multiple screenings of Red One.
I was the one that saw it. Yeah. I didn't reserve the theater, but it ended up being a private screening.
Yes. The Lightning beat the Kraken in Seattle 5-1. Brandon Hagel had 2 goals for Tampa Bay, while goalie Jonas Johansson had 21 saves in net. Andre Vasilevsky plays so often that when the backup goalie plays, you're like, who's the backup goalie for Tampa Bay?
And one of the Jonas brothers.
Yeah, Jonas Johansson with the
Braden Point getting his 20th goal of the season in just his 24th game. That is the 7th fastest any active player has reached 20 goals. We talked about Leon Draisaitl, but that was not his 24th game. His former teammate, by the way, Braden Point's former teammate, Steven Stamkos, did it in 21 games back in 2010, 2011. So it's not even a franchise record. And if you're watching on YouTube, you see the list here of players' fewest games, I should say, to 20 goals in a season. Leon Draisaitl, no surprise, the active leader with just 19 games back in 2021-22. Stamkos with 21, and then quite a few players with 22. And Braden Point with just his 20th goal already in just his 24th game, part of the very productive Lightning offense, even without Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, they get rid of Stamkos and they bring in Jay Gensel and they don't miss a beat.
No,
Kucherov and Point are still kicking ass.
I mean, the cap space it's a great job by Julien Brisebois because this team is, he realized I can get as much production as he's going to give me. Let him go. We don't have the cap space to keep him. I got other players. It's working out great for him so far.
2 more games on Saturday. Utah Hockey Club edged the Sharks in San Jose 4-3. Clayton Keller scores the game winner with 43 seconds left for Utah. And the Ducks got by the Blue Jackets in Columbus 4-3 in overtime. Alex Killorn scored the overtime game winner on a breakaway for his second goal of the night. And there was a goalie interference call on this one, Doug, that I know even I, as a Kings fan, said that is some bullcrap. Was it Mason McTavish got pushed into the goalie after he scored?
He scored a goal.
And then they called them for a penalty. And then the Columbus scored right after that. So it actually, was a bad call. And it turned out
100%
to give him a goal.
It's a first period, no score. Mason McTavish comes down the left wing, drives towards the net, scores, then gets hit into the goalie by Ivan Provorov. So he blows up the goalie in net that night. Jet Greaves absolutely destroys him. But the goal had already gone in. As soon as the goal goes in, the puck goes in, that's the stoppage in play. How is it goalie interference? We're not playing at that point. It's a stoppage in play. If you want to call it unsportsmanlike because I hit somebody during a stoppage in play, that's one thing. But they call goalie interference. He got pushed right into him. He was trying to avoid the contact. So then they call goalie interference anyway, which I'm like, how is that even possible? The Blue Jackets score almost immediately. Kirill Marchenko with a nice snipe from the top of the point. He gets the power play goal. Almost 30 seconds after that, they score a second goal. So it went from 1-0 Ducks to shorthanded 1-1 to 2-1 Blue Jackets in a minute and 10 seconds. And I was fit to be tied. Luckily, the Ducks came back and won that game. So it's not a real pisser, but the fact that it was even called was absolutely baffling. I would have been losing my mind if I was Greg Cronin. I don't understand how coaches keep their composure. I would have been absolutely just going crazy on the bench, throwing stuff and cursing out a blue streak. And especially when they scored the power play goal, I would have just been, I would have been uncontrollable, just trying to get after this guy, because what are we doing? I'm trying to keep my job here. And that's just a terrible call. And this was, by the way, a matchup of the 2nd and 3rd overall picks in the 2023 draft, as Leo Carlsson and Adam Fantilli both got on the ice. Neither of them had a point, but they have extremely similar stats. In fact, I'm going to look at this up real quick, because through their, that was the debate back when the Ducks had the 2nd overall pick, was who are you going to take, Fantilli or Leo Carlsson? And at that point, Fantilli had played 78 games. Carlsson had played 77. Carlsson had 18 goals. Fantilli had 17, and both of them had exactly 40 points. So exactly the same, almost exactly the same amount of games, goals, assists, and points for these two guys through their careers so far. So both teams are very happy with their pick, And I was hoping we'd see both of them have a little bit of a scoring fight in this one, but instead it was Alex Killorn with 2 goals. Nice to see him show up for once, earn his paycheck. And Mason McTavish definitely needed to good. And this was the first game after the Cam Fowler trade, seeing the Ducks' new defensive pairings with the 3 young stars, Jackson Lacombe, Olin Zellweger, Pavel Minchkov, all on the ice, as well as the 3 veterans of Radko Gudas, Jacob Trouba, and Brian Dumoulin. That's the defense I want to see going forward. Looked good. Get the win for John Gibson. Nice win for the Ducks.
All right, and finally on Sunday, as we are recording this Sunday night, earlier tonight, we had the Golden Knights edging the Wild in Minnesota 3-2. Victor Olofsson, 2 goals in the win for Vegas. Kirill Kaprizov had 2 goals in the loss for Minnesota. Numbers 21 and 22, so he is now tied Leon Draisaitl for the NHL goal-scoring lead for Minnesota. Blues got by the Rangers 3-2. St. Louis jumped out to a 3-0 lead before New York scored a pair of goals in the third period, but the comeback falls short. Robert Thomas's unassisted goal ends up being the game winner. Jonathan Quick got the start in this for the Rangers. He allowed 3 goals on 24 shots. Rangers have lost 10 of 13, all in regulation. They started the year 12-4-1 and have since just completely...
12-4-1, that means they're 3-10-0 in their last 13 games.
And this was the President's Trophy winners from a season ago. They're currently out of a playoff spot. We'll give you the playoff picture in a moment, but
and we're going to talk more about it in the second period.
Certainly,
what has gone wrong and what has to happen to get this thing turned around, and what changes might be coming. We know they traded Jacob Trouba and they re-signed their goalie. Will more trades be coming? Is a coaching change possible? All answers coming in the second period.
Maple Leafs beat the Sabres 5-3 behind 3 goals from John Tavares. His 14th career hat trick. Toronto hits the 40-point mark. They're in first place in the Atlantic Division. Jack Quinn, medicine man, pair of goals for Buffalo, but they've lost 10 in a row as we record this show.
A hat trick, that's another $3,000 for cancer research from the good folks at AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca, if they score enough goals, you might beat cancer.
Guess they're not going to sponsor the show. The Hurricanes knocked off the Blue Jackets 4-1. Dustin Tokarski got the start for Carolina, made 27 saves in his first appearance in an NHL game in nearly 22 months. Pyotr Kochetkov was scratched by head coach Rod Brindamore. He's not injured. Tokarski, the 5th goalie. You talked about all the goaltenders for, was it Colorado you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Tokarski.
They've had 6, yeah.
The 5th goalie for the Hurricanes this season. Kochetkov had been the number 1 after the injury to Frederick Anderson. You got Spencer Martin and someone named Yaniv Peretz has appeared in the game for the Carolina Hurricanes this year. Now you can throw Dustin Tokarski in the mix as well.
How about finish up, and I got a note on the Rangers game.
One more game to tell you about. The Blackhawks defeat the Islanders 5-3. Connor Bedard gets the game winner with 54 seconds left to lift Chicago to the win over the Islanders. Your note, your comment on the Rangers.
You mentioned the healthy scratch for Pyotr Kochetkov, the late scratch. Artemi Panarin was ruled out with an injury or an illness. We're not sure in that game. But Kaapo Kakko was a healthy scratch. And you got to wonder if this is trying to get people's attention, Peter Laviolette, or what he's trying to do. But I thought that was an interesting one because you're struggling to score goals. You're without the bread man, who is one of the best players in the NHL and certainly a table setter. Kaapo Kakko, I know he's not having a great year. But you got to think having him on the ice makes you better than without him. He's got 14 points on the season through 29 games. He has been in a slump. He only has 1 point in his last 5 games, but I was surprised to see him be a healthy scratch in this one.
Couple of quick notes, and Doug, if you have anything on any of these, you can jump right in. Couple of veteran defensemen announced their retirements. Kevin Shattenkirk calling it quits after 952 career NHL games with the Avalanche, Blues, Capitals, Rangers, Lightning, Ducks, and Bruins. He was a part of a Stanley Cup winner in Tampa Bay. And defenseman Justin Schultz announced his retirement. He played 754 games with the Oilers, Penguins, Capitals, and Kraken. He won a pair of Stanley Cups while in Pittsburgh.
My comment on that is when he retired, before he retired, Justin Schultz should have signed a one-day contract with the Ducks. If you know, you know.
Vegas Golden Knights signed forward Keegan Kolesar, 3 years, $7.5 million extension through the 2027-28 season. Carolina Hurricanes forward Jack Drury, hand surgery. He is out indefinitely.
You mentioned a new contract for a Vegas Golden Knight player. Do we have a comment on a
We do.
former
We
Vegas
do.
Golden Knight? All right.
I did want to mention the driver accused of killing NHL hockey players, Johnny Gaudreau, or NHL hockey player Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew, was indicted by a grand jury this week. Sean Higgins indicted on 2 counts of second-degree reckless vehicular homicide, 2 counts of first-degree aggravated manslaughter, fourth-degree tampering with evidence, and second-degree leaving the scene of a fatal accident. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm guessing if he's convicted on all those charges, he's going to get quite the sentence in prison there. So we'll see how that goes. And also, as you were alluding to, thoughts and prayers to NHL goalie Robin Leonard. Now, he's still technically an NHL player. He hasn't retired, but he hasn't played since 2022 when he was with the Vegas Golden Knights. Leonard sparked concern over his well-being after a series of rambling posts on social media. He has had his issues off the ice, to say the least. He's going through a divorce. His son apparently has health issues. He's filed for bankruptcy, as we've joked about a little bit, but this is not a joke. He's got mental health issues. And I read the first post and then I realized, oh my God, there's like 5 more of these. And these are, I mean, I sent you a photo of the first one and it didn't even fit on the screen.
Yeah.
And I follow former NHL goalie Phoenix Copley. He plays in the AHL for the Kings affiliate, and he had tweeted out basically, "Hey, we need to check on this guy and help him if we can." And so, yeah, it was concerning to say the least. And look, he's going through a ton, and even if he doesn't have mental health issues, going through all that stuff could challenge the most sound mind person. But he's had some bipolar issues. He's been diagnosed with that. He's fought through it, but hopefully he's going to get some help. Hopefully some people are reaching out to him because it's hard to read that and not be concerned for him.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you look at that and you realize this is not the thoughts of a sound mind. And we know he's had his issues in the past, and they seem to be in the present as well. And the thing that you mentioned, he's still on an NHL contract. He's getting paid this season. They reached an agreement so that it wouldn't count against their cap. I don't know how they did that, but leave it to the Vegas Golden Knights to find a way to pay a player and have it not count against the cap. But he is still a player, and he is still a member of the NHLPA, as far as I know.
Which means he's available for treatment, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is there's an NHLPA player assistance program.
Yeah.
Why that is not knocking on his door right now and getting him the help he needs and making sure, like you said, doing a welfare check on this guy to make sure he is in a good place physically. And he obviously, you can't butterfly net him anymore. You can't drag somebody off against their will, but go and check on the guy, my goodness, and offer help. It seemed like when he goes public on Twitter or any social media outlet, and he called the Las Vegas Review-Journal or did an interview with them via text, that's a reach out for help. That's a guy that I think knows he's not right and he's got to communicate somewhere and somehow with people. And yeah, it is, it's disturbing. It's incoherent. I mean, his ramblings are just, you can't make heads or tails out of it. And so I hope that somebody that knows where he is and has and can get a hold of him or actually get to him physically, has done so to check on him and start getting him the help he needs, because that was alarming when you see that and you're like, wow, this is not a guy that seems like better days are ahead of him in his immediate future.
All right, let's close it out with a look at the standings. Where do you want to start there, Mr. Stolhand?
I think we've been alternating, so let's start in the Pacific with with our 2 favorite teams.
Let's do it. The Vegas Golden Knights, very quietly kind of going about their business. They let go of Jonathan Marchessault. Chandler Stevenson left in the offseason as well, but they continue to just chug along. Record of 28-3 for 43 points on top of the Pacific Division for pretty much the entire season. So Vegas continues to get it done. The LA Kings, not too bad. 39 points, 18-9-3, second place, where they've been most of the year as well. The Oilers are moving on up. Started slowly, but they've now crept into the top 3 in the Pacific with 38 points. Then you've got Vancouver slipping a bit at 35 points. Calgary also at 35 points.
They've rallied back. They
bit.
got off to that hot start. They started struggling. I was impressed. They had a good week this last week.
So those are your top 5 right now in the Pacific. Seattle's got 32 points. We'll throw them in there as well. So let's check the Central Division.
Well, let's round it out. San Jose has 27. Ducks have 26. Ducks do have 4 games in hand on San Jose, so I'm not too worried about being buried, but still don't like being in last place. As we looked at that Pacific, though, Eddie, you can't be too happy to see that the playoff matchup is looking like Kings Oilers for a 4th straight
no, it's
season.
not going to happen again. No,
Certainly not.
Don't you say
that'll be a sweep this year, right? If
let's move to the Central Division. Let's move to the Central Division, where the Winnipeg Jets are on top, 45 points. Minnesota right behind them with 41. Those are your top 2 point producers in the NHL at the moment. Dallas and Colorado are right now a bit of a distant second or third and fourth in the division, both with 36 points. Utah and St. Louis each have 33, and then you got Chicago and Nashville. We mentioned the Predators at the bottom of the Central and at the bottom of the NHL standings right now.
Yeah, how about the Avalanche, though? Look at that goals against for the season. I don't know if you have it on there, but
I do not.
They've given up 111 goals already this season. That is the third most in the entire NHL. Fourth most. I forgot about San Jose, but 111, by far the most in the Central Division. It's more than the Predators have given up, more than the Blackhawks have given up. Neither of them have even given up 100 goals so far this season, but 111. And that is why they made 2 goalie trades to try and get that number under control, because they've also scored a lot of goals this season, 107. If they can continue scoring goals, which I think they will, and get better goaltending, they're going to be up with Minnesota and Winnipeg soon enough.
So as far as the playoffs, as we record this show, top 3 in the Central, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas. Top 3 in the Pacific, Vegas, LA, Edmonton. And your 2 wildcard teams right now are Colorado and Vancouver. Calgary, though, is tied with the Canucks with 35 points. Utah, 2 points, and so is St. Louis out of a wildcard spot.
St. Louis believes they can make a run. I don't. I don't think they have the horses to make a run at these teams that are ahead of them, but they do. That's why they made the Fowler trade. They're trying to get themselves in with the new coach, a little bit more depth on defense. They think they can make that run, but Calgary is in the hunt. I still don't believe they have the defense and goaltending to get it done long term. And Vancouver does have 2 games in hand on them, and even though they are tied with 35 points.
Let's go over in the Eastern Conference, the Atlantic Division. Maple Leafs right now are in first place with 40 points, 19-10-2 the record. For Toronto, defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers are in second place with 38 points. Boston is in third place with 35 points. And you've got Tampa Bay, 34 points. Ottawa, 32 points. Then Detroit, Buffalo, and Montreal rounding out the Atlantic. And over in the Metropolitan Division, the surprising Washington Capitals continue to get it done without the Great 8 as well. They have not taken a step back whatsoever without Alexander Ovechkin. 21-6-2 the record for the Capitals for 44 points. You've got New Jersey with 43 points right behind them, but they've played 4 more games in Washington. Third place is Carolina with 39 points, and you got Philadelphia with 32 points. The Rangers, the Penguins, the Islanders, 31 points, and then Columbus with 29 points.
The Rangers, man, 31 points, tied with the Islanders and the Penguins down there for basically 7th place, 5th through 7th right there. It's possible that a week from now when we do our show, the Rangers could be dead last in the Metropolitan Division. They're only 2 points ahead of the Blue Jackets. That's, we talked about when does Andrew Brunette get fired in Nashville? When does Peter Laviolette get fired? We will talk about it more in the second period with John Chick.
Looking forward to that interview. As far as the playoff picture in the East, you've got Toronto, Florida, and Boston, your top 3 in the Atlantic. Top 3 in the Metro, Washington, New Jersey, and Carolina. Your 2 wildcard teams are Tampa Bay and the Ottawa Senators right now. They've got 32 points. So do the Flyers.
How about that?
But 1 fewer game played, so a game in hand for Ottawa. Of course, the
Yeah, they have
Rangers.
all the tiebreakers there. Fewer games played, more regulation wins, more regulation and overtime wins. Every tiebreaker goes to Ottawa. Obviously, 50 some games to go as well. But for Ottawa to be in a playoff position in mid-December has got to be exciting for their fans and their organization. And man, that's long overdue. And you worry, you wonder about Buffalo. They're the other team that is always supposed to be turning the corner and getting back to being competitive. We have not seen it from Buffalo. We are seeing it from Ottawa.
All right, that'll do it for our first period of our YouTube show. If you enjoyed it, if you want to hear more, check out the remaining 2 periods of our show on our podcast. Just search Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you are listening to the podcast, the second and third periods are upcoming. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhan, and we will talk to you next Monday with another edition of the Puck Podcast.